battle.
You're up. Okay, here's one. I call it the invisible noose. First, I throw a rope over this tree limb, put the noose around my neck. Now I'll just step onto this rock and jump off into the sweet relief of death.
So, I know I haven't uploaded in a while, and I apologize for that. But don't worry, I am back now and uploading. I have also been keeping up on all the recent death battle news, and don't worry, I haven't forgotten about Ash versus Yugi. I'm going to address that one in due time. Just give me a little bit more time to get it ready, as that is a big death battle, so it is going to get a big response. But until then, I'll at least upload a couple of smaller videos in the meantime. And this is something I wanted to address, and given the subject matter of who is involved, I think you all knew that this was going to be something that I was going to talk about. So let's talk about it. And I want to preface this real quick. This is not necessarily a video about Ichigo versus Yusuke. I will address it a little bit on the off chance that this is real, but I want to preface this by saying that these death battle ideas that I've been hearing about, such as Ichigo versus Yusuke and Ichigo returning to death battle, from what I can gather so far, these are still just rumors, although a couple of my sources have been adamantly telling me that I guess death battle left some kind of hint in Ash versus Yugi that Ichigo was going to be coming back, or maybe there was something on their Twitter account, I don't know, but I'm going to address this possibility, as if this is true, then it will definitely be big. So let's not waste any time and get into it. So rumor has it that the next death battle is going to involve Ichigo. Now, as for who his opponent is, it's not known, although there seems to be huge amounts of speculation that's going to be Yusuke from Yu Yu Hakusho. Not only has that been a popular matchup for Ichigo, but I do remember back in the day that in one of the Death Battle cast streams, they actually did talk about the prospect of Ichigo versus Yusuke. And what's interesting about this, if this ends up being true, is that way back, Ben Singer talked about the possibility of Ichigo fighting Yusuke, and he said no, simply because it was a stomp matchup. This was Ben Singer's own words. He said, yeah, I think that the fight is unfair. Now, here's just kind of my thoughts on it. Regardless of if Ichigo is fighting Yusuke or whoever he might be fighting, I don't really care, because here's where I'm at when it comes to Ichigo being back on Death Battle. And I want to say one more disclaimer first. I need you to keep in mind that this is coming from somebody who is a Bleach fan. So keep that in mind when I say this. I don't want Ichigo back on Death Battle. I don't want any Bleach characters showing up on Death Battle no more. Now, why? Well, the answer to that is quite simple if you're familiar with my history with Death Battle, and that is Death Battle have shown themselves to be incapable of producing even a serviceable Death Battle involving a single Bleach character. They have had 2 characters from Bleach show up on Death Battle, and both times they fucked both those characters over, heavily downplayed them, disrespected them, and Death Battle themselves openly admitted on their own podcast they don't know how to power scale Ichigo, they don't know how to power scale Bleach. And it shows, because when you watch Naruto vs. Ichigo or Madara vs. Aizen, it is so clear that Death Battle has no clue what they're doing. They don't have a single Bleach fan on standby, and it shows. and you can tell they don't do their research. And I'm really not looking forward to seeing Death Battle bring back Ichigo only to fuck him over again, especially when you consider that Death Battle still hasn't taken accountability for the colossal fuck-up that was Naruto versus Ichigo. I saw their recent live stream where they were talking about the death battles that they got wrong, and they utterly refused to address Naruto versus Ichigo or Madara versus Aizen. So in their minds, they still think that they got that death battle right, when, like Doomslayer versus Master Chief, Naruto versus Ichigo is something that demands a rematch because of how badly they fucked it up. And there are just... I gotta try to take this one at a time. Problem 1. Why are you already trying to bring back Ichigo when there are other Bleach characters that haven't even gotten their turn yet? You all haven't even touched Rukia, Byakuya, Kenpachi, any of the Espada, Yuha, and yet you already want to bring back Ichigo. Like, oh, well, we're already out of ideas, so let's just do Ichigo again. The character we have openly admitted we don't know how to power scale and have utterly disrespected time and time again. Now, again, I don't want to see any more Bleach characters show up on Death Battle, but if you are going to bring some other Bleach characters on Death Battle, why would you not do Rukia, Byakuya, Yuha, any of the Espada, Unohana, any of these other characters? Bleach has such a massive cast of characters, and in the entire 10 plus years of Death Battle's existence, they have done only 2 Bleach characters. 2. And if you are going to bring back Ichigo, wouldn't it make more sense for you to fix Naruto versus Ichigo first? Because you already burned that bridge with the Bleach fan base. Because that's another thing I cannot stress enough. Now, I can't speak for all Bleach fans, and if there's any Bleach fans that feel differently, please feel free to speak up. But at least as far as I'm concerned, Death Battle has burned that bridge with the Bleach fan base, because every single time they do a Bleach Death Battle, it always ends up being the worst Death Battle. Naruto versus Ichigo was the worst Death Battle for years, until other Death Battles like Big Head versus Deadpool and Madara versus Aizen happened. And what sucks is I said for years, if Death Battle ever does Madara versus Aizen, it will usurp Naruto versus Ichigo, and it did. And I'm supposed to believe that, oh, well, this time they'll get it right. And here's another thing I want to address. If what Ben Singer believes is true, that they think that this is a stomp Death Battle, does Death Battle really think that by feeding Yusuke to Ichigo and giving him an easy win is going to get him on better terms with the Bleach fan base? Do they really think that we're that easy to please? Because again, at least from my point of view, giving Ichigo an easy victory would be even more insulting, because it shows that Death Battle pities Ichigo, like, oh, sorry Ichigo, we know you weren't strong enough to defeat Naruto, even though you absolutely should have decimated him. So here, we'll let you fight Yusuke, a guy that you can easily defeat. You know, I got you a nice, easy opponent this time. Like, no, fuck off, Death Battle. You already burned that fucking bridge. As far as I'm concerned, I revoke your right to use any fucking Bleach characters in the foreseeable future. Or if you are going to do this, then you need to first start by addressing Naruto versus Ichigo first. But I know you won't do it because you believe that you're right on that, and you're not going to risk pissing off the Naruto fans, because ever since Gaara versus Toph, Death Battle has been afraid to agitate the Naruto base, and the Naruto fans still have been a pain in the ass for the Bleach fan base. And another thing I find annoying is I find it convenient that Death Battle is only interested in doing another Bleach character after so many years. because, oh, the Bleach anime is coming back, and it's very popular, and the season finale of Bleach Thousand Year Blood War is now about to come out around the same time the season premiere of Death Battle is happening. Very convenient that only now Death Battle wants to pretend to care about Bleach. And that's another thing. Death Battle has shown that they are not only incapable of power scaling Bleach correctly, but they're incapable of being honest about Bleach. Need I remind you all that this is the same Death Battle that was caught lying, trying to claim that they were the first people to ever animate Ichigo's Horn of Salvation mode, even though that was objectively, provably false, and a simple Google search could have debunked that. And I've talked about this before, how I'm just so sick and tired of Death Battle being so disingenuous about things. And people would say, oh, why is it a bad thing if Death Battle lies or gets power scaling wrong? It's just a show for entertainment. Because it shows that Death Battle will happily lie for whatever reasons they deem necessary, and lying is never acceptable. You never want to lie to your audience. I know people will say, well, oh, why don't you give Death Battle a chance to redeem themselves? Maybe they will redeem themselves. Well, see, the reason I listed earlier, that even if the goal is to try to regain favor with the Bleach fan base, having Ichigo stomp an easy opponent is not the best way to go about doing that. But furthermore, here's another problem. I'll address Ichigo versus Yusuke. Now, I'll address it a little bit on the off chance that this actually happens. So, the main problem with Ichigo and Yusuke is, first off, the only reason why they want to do this matchup is, oh, they're both ghost hunters from very popular anime that were influential. That's it. So that's about all you got. So there isn't really much to connect these two universes outside of the fact that they both focus on characters that battle against ghosts. Oh gee, I wonder who else is a character that battles against ghosts that they can use. But that's neither here nor there. The main problem with this fight, other than the fact that it's a massive stomp because Ichigo completely wrecks Yusuke in every way possible, I've said this before in previous videos, and I'll say this again. Ichigo, even if you lowball him, is comparable to the Soul King and is a Soul King potential. If the Soul King was ever killed and they needed to replace him, Ichigo would be one of the candidates that they would use. And the Soul King isn't just the one who created the entire Bleach cosmology, he is also the linchpin for the entire Bleach cosmology. If that linchpin is removed, then the entire cosmology completely destroys itself. So even if you were to lowball these facts, Ichigo would be at least Universal Plus, most likely stronger than that. As you have characters that are weaker than Ichigo, like Senjumaru, who is able to shake the three realms just by simply releasing her Bankai. And of course, as I've said countless times before, FTL speeds is something that was established as early as the Soul Society arc. Even a lowly lieutenant in Bleach is more than capable at moving at FTL speeds. And Ichigo was speed blitzing FTL fighters before he even released his first Bankai. So, while I've only ever power scaled Yusuke once or twice, back when they did the Sasuke Hiei thing, and I was trying to understand Yu Yu Hakusho's cosmology, the best I can gather is Yu Yu Hakusho is somewhere around multi-continental to possibly planetary, because Death Battle swears up and down that Yu Yu Hakusho is a planetary universe, but the only evidence they offer for this is, oh, well, they say so, but they don't offer any feet to back it up. But let's suppose I give Yusuke the maximum benefit of the doubt that, okay, he's multi-continental to planetary and maybe FTL, well, he would still get speed blitzed and one-shotted by Ichigo, who, even with low ball, should be universal to MFTL. And again, none of this is me glazing Bleach. There has been a lot of new information that has been released since the light novels and since the return of the anime. But here's another big problem with this fight, other than compatibility. Another big problem is this. This fight is inherently limited in what you can do with it, because Ichigo is primarily a melee sword fighter. Yes, he has some long-range techniques like his infamous Getsuga. He can use the Seiro. He can use techniques like Getsuga, Jushiro, and all that stuff. But primarily, Ichigo is a sword fighter, and typically when he gets into fights with people, it's usually in some kind of melee fight. He's not a character with like a bunch of like hack powers or a bunch of different abilities. He's mostly just like a raw strength kind of guy. I guess you could say he's kind of the Goku of his universe. You know, he mostly relies on his raw physical stats to get him through most fights. Unlike other Bleach characters, he's the kind of the exact opposite of Aizen, where Aizen has a metric crap ton of abilities, and through things like the Hogyoku, can manifest any power he wants, has limitless evolution, reactive evolution, and has his Kyoka Suigetsu, which gives him his absolute hypnosis powers. By comparison, Yusuke over here, from what I understand, is primarily a martial artist with some energy spirit-based techniques from what I understand. And I'm sure I hear some of you saying, well, it doesn't sound like these two are that incompatible if they're both melee fighters. What I'm trying to get at here is this. There's only so much you can do when all you're going to get out of these guys is some punching, some kicking, some sword swings here and there. Here comes a couple Getsugas. Here comes a couple of energy blast techniques from Yusuke. Like, we've seen this stuff before. It's nothing we haven't already seen before, and it's nothing that we haven't already seen in fights like Naruto versus Ichigo. Like, if you're going to bring Ichigo back, can you at least put him against a character that has some kind of melee weapon so he can get into a sword fight or something? Because other than that, you're not going to really get much out of this fight. And this is something I've talked about before. Think about it this way. One of my main problems with some of the Star Wars death battles is that every time they bring a Star Wars character on death battle, they almost never take advantage of the fact or factor in that, oh hey, these characters have lightsabers. Maybe we should put them against a character that can actually give us an excuse to have a lightsaber battle. For example, when they did Boba Fett versus Samus Aran, they had those two get into a lightsaber battle, and it was awesome. They took advantage of the fact that, oh hey, Boba Fett had a lightsaber at one point, and hey, Samus Aran's sword can also pull out a plasma beam of some kind. Let's have them get into a lightsaber fight. But in all the other ones, they don't take advantage of that. So, like, the character will still have their lightsaber, but they don't really get into any kind of lightsaber fight, because in the case of Obito versus Darth Vader, I'm gonna use my fan against you, slice in half, never mind. Honestly, this just shows me that Death Battle does not know what to do with Ichigo or any Bleach characters, for that matter, because the Bleach universe is primarily a kind of sword and samurai type of universe. Yeah, there are some exceptions to the rule. There are some ninja characters. You got some gunslinger characters here and there, but primarily Bleach is mostly about like sword fights and like the occasional battle of magic here and there. And so far, when it comes to like sword fights, Death Battle has disappointed before, such as with Guts versus Nightmare. And I just don't have any confidence that Death Battle will get it right this time. Because, again, if they showed any sign that they had been improving, then Madara versus Aizen should have been better than Naruto versus Ichigo, not worse. That one was an even worse example because you have two characters that have these crazy hypnosis powers that can literally do all this crazy reality warping stuff that can make you see anything, and they don't take advantage of it at all. You have a character that has an object that can manifest any power that the user wants and evolve limitlessly, and they don't do anything with it. They do the bare minimum because, to me, it shows a huge amount of lack of imagination, or at least lack of understanding of Bleach on Death Battle's part. Not to mention, if they're going to pass this off to the God Emperor himself, Liam, I'm not going to trust that he is going to get it right. And if anything, if they are going to bring back Bleach, at the very least, Death Battle, here's what you need to do. Go to some Bleach lore channels. There are plenty you can go to. Mr. Tomu. There's this guy called like Mr. Senpai or something like that. Go to Tekken 101 or Too Spooky. Literally any of these YouTubers understand Bleach a whole heck of a lot better than you do. Use any of frickin' DBZ Man or Clyde's videos because they at least know their Bleach lore. You do not. And like I said, I, as a Bleach fan, am not interested in seeing Death Battle bring back a Bleach character only just to fuck up and disrespect them. Because I would like to remind you that Death Battle heavily low-balled Ichigo and countless other Bleach characters. They didn't even want to admit that Yuha was planet level, even though he objectively was planet level, and Ichigo is planet level as well beyond planet level, even back then with some of the kind of iffy information. And if there's one thing I'm sick and tired of, I'm tired of Death Battle lowballing characters. And Death Battle has shown that they will keep doing this, because I've had some people tell me that, oh, stop bringing up Death Battle's older videos. Death Battle has changed, man. Bullshit. Because if you look back to some of the more recent episodes that they did, Spawn versus Ghost Rider, or more worse so, Buffy versus Blade, where they constantly are lowballing Marvel and not giving them the proper respect. So if they're going to sit here and lowball Blade and have him lose a fight to Buffy, I'm supposed to expect that they won't lowball a universe they have already shown themselves incapable of power scaling? Like, come on. And again, I still maintain that if Death Battle is going to do this, then Death Battle should at least try to address Naruto versus Ichigo first. In fact, I think that Death Battle should start making it a habit of every season for the foreseeable future, they do one rematch Death Battle and they fix one of the Death Battles that they fucked up in the past. Especially since Death Battle is actually trying to address their previous episodes that they fucked up, like Yang versus Tifa. And not to mention, I would also argue another reason why they should be working on fixing Naruto versus Ichigo before having Ichigo fight anybody else is you can argue that Naruto vs. Ichigo is now outdated because of the return of the Bleach anime and the various light novels and the announcement of the upcoming Bleach Hell arc, which is going to make any information that was in that Death Battle outdated. But yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on Ichigo possibly returning to Death Battle and Ichigo versus Yusuke. Now, like I said, this has not been confirmed yet. Maybe this is all just rumor and speculation. If so, oh well, at least I got a rant out of it. And if they do this Death Battle, then expect more videos of me talking about this. But from what I understand, the 3 Death Battles that we know is actually happening this month and the rest of the year is Light versus Columbo, Aang versus the Traveler, and Gru versus Megamind. And then, of course, there is the recently announced Nero versus Kamen Rider Geats, which I will address that one in due time as well. I will address the conclusion to Champion Island, because as you've seen from some of my posts, I have some thoughts on Nero versus Kamen Rider, especially since now Death Battle wants to do the Fate universe. Yeah, Again, the same people that admit that they hate power scaling Final Fantasy and don't know how to power scale Bleach, yeah, they're going to power scale the Fate universe. A universe that even hardcore Fate fans struggle to power scale. Yeah, well, I'll be holding my breath for that one, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about any of this, and if anybody has any information to confirm whether or not this is actually going to happen, please let me know, because I looked around trying to find any confirmation of Ichigo's return, or that he's going to be battling Yusuke, and so far I haven't been able to find much, not even on the Death Battle wiki page. But with that being said, I'll see you guys around for the next video.
Sometimes I feel a voice in my head saying the world is dead and it's taking me back.